The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. In business, we often get so focused on the what, we lose sight of the why. The why is the key to your success. When you know your why, then your what has more impact. Money is the result of our work, but it's our why that fuels it, that fuels you. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure to join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast, episode number 4. I am your host, Jack Darrapple, here alongside my co-host, and someone else, Michael Ketchin.
Yeah, well, I'm like, wow. What are we going to do with this?
He's not here right now.
Yeah, we're going to pretend he's not here. What's going on? Episode 4, a month in.
Getting after it.
We are. It's time. It's go time now, right?
It is go time. First guest in studio.
I like it.
First studio audience member.
We do. We have a guest.
Live
studio audience.
Hopefully that will grow in due time, but we do love our guests who are out there now. So what's going on?
All of them.
Yes.
So I know we like to pretend like it's all roses and sunshine, but I made a big mistake.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Did it cost you money?
It did.
And did it cost you media
That's always
reputation?
unfortunate.
It's mediocre. The financial impact is going to be mediocre, but it's more of a
Humbling experience?
humbling experience.
I like that.
Just negligence.
Well, tell the people
and
at
it's going
home.
to affect someone else. So I
Real estate
basically
professional.
Yeah. So I had one of the apartments that I manage personally right now was a Section 8 tenant. Had a Section 8 inspection. I thought it was at 11:30. It wasn't. It was at 10.
Yes.
The inspector was pissed. And I've had inspections in this unit before and never had anything wrong with it. And she wrote me up for about 100 different things, like just ticky-tack, BS stuff that...
So
it's just going to be a pain in...
So what is the lesson here?
Systematize and stuff.
Wow.
Jerking around.
Systems are important.
Yeah.
And
it could have been all resolved with a simple text at any point over the past 2 weeks that I just neglected to do it.
But we're taking
And I didn't
accountability.
realize,
We're taking accountability.
100% my responsibility, and someone else is going to have to suffer the consequences, which is the worst part of it all.
Yep, and it's going to hurt your wallet, and we'll learn and move on.
Yeah. But what do you got going on?
To be honest, we got another building under contract, working on mixed use, which we love that. Some little commercial, little multifamily. I don't want to give away too much, but it's the first time we're looking at a building that has a laundromat that we're considering owning, operating as well within the model. So we'll be doing some deep dive on a webinar, something behind the scenes, but pretty excited. It's another industry we want to look at, another cash flowing asset, and a whole nother area to take down as an investor. So pretty excited about that.
That is exciting.
But who's this young
So
man
we
next to us?
do have a guest in studio. This is Matthew Hitchcock. But before we dig into his story and what he's all about, let's have a word from our sponsors.
I like it.
Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monty from Boynton's Insurance, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interest at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
All right, we're back.
All right. So like I said, we have Matthew Hitchcock in studio. Prior to co-founding Commonwealth Collective, along with Mr. Michael Ketchin, Matthew was a successful independent real estate investor.
Use that loosely.
Having purchased and managed properties in the Massachusetts Merrimack Valley, an area and market that he knows very well. Matthew definitely applies his professional skills in marketing and management, honed through years of working in sales and recruitment to creatively market the company's properties, secure and manage renters, and strengthen the company's ever-increasing social media presence. Directly off the website. I was reading that word for word.
That was excellent.
Thank you, Hannah Ketchum. For those at home wondering. So,
But in addition, I think we have to touch on that Matthew is Matt, I don't know why I keep calling you Matthew.
Either way, Matthew, Matt, whichever way.
Is a professional house hacker.
Oh,
and
yes.
for the record, can kick my ass.
yes. So for those at home,
That
before
may
we
or may
dive
not be
in,
factual.
yes, a house hacker is basically someone who finds a way to offload their primary expense, their cost of living. Meaning they either own a home and they rent out rooms, or they own a multifamily, et cetera, and they basically lower their cost of living. And no one has ever house hacked the way the gentleman next to me has.
Professional.
I believe he is 34 now.
Yep.
And I think I still don't know if you've ever paid for living at this point, despite having a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. So it's very impressive. So I hope we'll get into that a little bit today.
For sure.
And Jack mentioned can kick his ass. Why can he kick your ass, Jack?
Black belt, right?
Black belt in what?
Multiple time black belt in karate, and then also a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So.
Yes, there it is. All right, so we gave a little bit of an overview. Matt, why don't you tell the people at home and the listeners where you at in your business today, though? What do you got going on?
Sure. I mean, Mike touched on it a little bit last week. In terms, again, I own Commonwealth Collective with Mike and his wife, Hannah. We essentially are around north of about 100 apartments. We have 3 Airbnbs. As I mentioned with the house hacking, I personally own 2 investment properties on my own. And then also, as Mike alluded to, we have a new property under contract, which is mixed use, kind of diving into the laundromat space. And the goal eventually is to dive into a couple other things in terms of bars and restaurants and that type of stuff, which I don't know if you guys get this a lot, but when I tell people what I do in terms of real estate and owning property, or if I'm venturing into bars and restaurants, they say, oh, well, owning a bar is really hard. And then I look at them and I'm like, how many bars do you own? And they're like, well, I don't own any. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
and then they're like, oh,
yeah.
being a landlord's really tough, right? I'm like, well, how many properties do you own? Is it tough for you? Well, I don't own any. I don't understand where your gauge is. I'm confused.
I mean, I think working for 40 years is tough from 9 to 5. So that's just me.
It's very true. Very true.
Working that corporate ladder, exactly. That's one of the things we're talking about. Where to each his own. That's what everybody wants. But we'll get into your why here in a little bit. But to kind of bring it full circle, one of the stories I alluded to, Matt, is good friends of my brother, and we talked. I mean, I think I was in high school. You were still in high school. The first time we talked about buying real estate together.
I was in high school. You were maybe a year out or something like that, somewhere in there.
So you're talking in 2001-ish, right around there, 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
And here we are all these years later, and I think about that a lot, that it kind of stuck with me. And, I think that's a perfect segue into, you were doing the corporate ladder. I know you were big, martial arts, all that stuff. But you left that all behind to kind of pursue this investing career, which I'm very glad you did. You're a great business partner. But what was your why behind that? What was your motivation to do that?
Well, I mean, I think from an early age, I realized to your point, I don't want to work 40 years or be 60 or 65, 70 years old, whatever it is, before I decide, hey, I want to start going on vacation and doing those things. And I just think that the system in terms of formal education in school, which we'll get to in a little bit, I think it serves a purpose, but at the same time, it puts you into this pocket where you've been in a system. It's 9 to 5 essentially when you're in middle school, and then you go to high school, you stay at the same roughly 9 to 5, you go to college. It's not 9 to 5 because you get to pick your courses and classes, but you still have to show up somewhere at a certain time and do this, which again, as you kind of alluded to, me doing martial arts, that's why I did it for a long time. And I taught it, and it was a lot of fun. But in terms of a hobby, it was great more as a hobby, not so much as a career, because you have to have structured classes that you have to show up and teach. It's still the system of being structured and going somewhere at a certain time.
So the time freedom was big.
The time freedoms was really the biggest thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. The ability to do what you want when you want is
huge.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's huge. And I think that I want to jump back into something we were talking about there a second ago, because it ties into your why and giving you that time freedom. Explain the house hacking. Explain how you've leveraged this technique to the people at home who might not be familiar. What does it look like from? I mean, I know from when you got the first one, you can even go as far as that.
Yep.
To kind of some of the techniques, some of the things you've done with that in your story and how that ties in.
Sure. Well, it's funny actually. So in 2015, I believe is when I bought my first investment property. I didn't read a book saying, "Hey, this is how you house hack." It just kind of happened. I think one of the biggest things that
There are many of them, by the way.
Yes.
there's tons. There are tons that you can find.
Yes.
But before that, essentially, I was just like, hey, I was very patient. I stayed at home till about 27, 28, which is what gave me a lot of leverage as opposed to a lot of other kids. I mean, they go to college, they get out, they're 22, 23, they immediately go and start renting an apartment. So now you're not really saving money. Luckily, I mean, I have the best parents in the world, so it was easy enough for me to stay home till 27 or 28. Not everybody can do that. But I was patient, saved money, had a business partner at the time. We found a 3-family. We ended up living in the second unit, and we ended up renting out the first floor and the third floor. And that was really the extent of me just not wanting to pay rent. I wanted to move out, but not pay rent, not pay mortgage. So it worked out. And and then that property, funny enough, fast forward, it had 2 garages on the property, which me and my friend were like, all right, whatever, like not a big deal. We don't own cars or anything like that. One was an 8-car garage, and the other one was a 3-car garage because this guy was a car guy.
Oh my God.
Really?
Oh, it gets better. It's coming.
garage.
Yeah, so we didn't realize the market for storage. So
Yeah,
now we
yeah.
rented out the first floor and the second floor, and then we're like, what do we do with these 2 garages? And I was like, I don't know, let me throw up a Craigslist ad. Had a huge amount of interest, and so we started renting out the garages for extra income. And that ended up paying not only for the mortgage and the bills, but now you had a little bit of money on the side. Fast forward, I still have that property. That partner that I had at the time, he ended up going a different route, wanted to sell it. I said, hey, I'll buy you out of your share of it, so I still own that one. And I ended up moving out of that one to a condo, and now at that point, I could rent the second unit. So that second unit then paid the mortgage for the first house, plus it paid the mortgage for my condo.
Fantastic.
And then from there now, I met my wonderful girlfriend, and I'm over at her place. So now I'm renting that condo out. So
And Amy, if you're watching, you're not charging him enough in rent. So,
this is also very true.
Well, it's not like a housing expense is a significant part of your monthly budget, right?
yes. Yeah, he eliminated it. And, you know, it's funny that you bring up Craigslist because, again, it goes back to that mindset, that why, and being a business partner. We're kind of giving some more caveats that we have today. And, Jack, I don't know if you know the story, but literally we joke and say that's when a legend was born because we were standing in our first multifamily building we bought, not the first Airbnbs, but the first multifamily in Manchester Street. And I was running the numbers, and this is at the time. We hadn't bought one yet. I mean, I was running the numbers in terms of whatever I put in the computer, I thought it looked okay. And I'll never forget, we're standing in this little, how big the Manchester Street studio is? 200, 300 feet?
I think 333, like exactly.
Yeah, 330 square foot studio. And I'm thinking maybe someone can rent this for $700-800. And he looks at me and he goes, $700-800? In typical Matt voice, Tugs, I've got this up for 1,000 already. I've got hits. I'm like, what? To this day, that property has never had a vacancy. We have a waiting list, and it stuck with me because that's really what Commonwealth Collective was really the foundation, is that teamwork and relying on each other, because I couldn't see myself there in that situation. And if I had been making all the decisions, back to Jack earlier with the systems we're talking about, if it had just been me making all the decisions, think of how much money I would have left on the table and how much I negatively would have affected the business. But because you have that team and those systems in place, and because of Matt's experience going back to the house hacking and understanding how to add and market and really build yourself, I mean, the rest is kind of history at this point where we're at, but it really kind of took off from there. So I think it's fascinating. And, you know, I want to ask you one thing while we got you here, because that's where I'm going with it. How did you, because I've never asked you this on stage, how are you so good at customer service and understand these markets and things like this? What kind of actionable
I was just thinking
tips
that,
is
like,
it?
that baffles
Because we
me.
got you here now,
I
you can't
hate
get
it.
away.
I hate
So
it.
I hate talking
I was like, I
tenants.
need a Matt on my team.
And I think, so again, I alluded to the fact that I worked at Enterprise coming out of college, and that was one of the things that really, I mean, that gives you a deep dive into customer service because you deal with some people that are not very happy, and you have to educate them a ton.
That's
So yeah, going back to your point, I mean, I think it's one of those things. when you're diving into these markets, sometimes you got to try and remove yourself from what you think you know, because sometimes you don't actually know. So, I mean, there's no harm in if you go into a market and you post something that you think is out of what the budget actually is. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, the worst case, you're not going to get hits. Yeah. You just drop the price. So, I mean, I do my research online. I mean, there's a couple different tools we use. Rentometer is one of the big ones that we use to try and target and find out what certain apartments are going for. But again, that doesn't always give you all the intangibles and the nuances of an apartment. So again, we do a lot of all utilities included, or some of these ones have no utilities included. Some of them have parking, some of them don't have parking. And unfortunately, some of these sites that give you those data points, they can't tell you all of those intangibles. So sometimes it's a lot of playing around with it. But again, I think one of the things is you're trying to remove yourself from what you think you know as opposed to what it actually is.
Yeah, I definitely think that's as someone who works closely with you, I think that's a huge strength of yours, that you don't just believe because you think it's true. You go out and verify it and fact check it, which I think is huge. So that's great. You want to what do we got coming up?
So basically, just what are you doing on a daily basis? What's your day-to-day look like?
So day-to-day with the company, I mean, I'm, again, marketing the ads, so, I mean, use a bunch of different platforms. I do still show some of the apartments. We do rely on a couple other resources and people that we have within our company that we have show the apartments. But again,
you doing any remote showings right now?
We have not started a ton of remote showings.
Supposed to give up all the secret sauce yet, Jack. We're rolling that out. We haven't rolled that out yet.
Playing out with some QR code stuff, but nothing.
Yes.
No remote stuff yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of it is the marketing, talking with different people that are inquiring about apartments. Obviously now with us going into new markets, it's doing more studying in terms of like where we're at in Keene, studying that market and finding out, again, as Mike alluded to with Manchester Street, we started what we thought was possible. Now we got to try and see if we can push the envelope to get it to what we really want. So, and then of course I do the leases and those types of things. Working with our database, which we're working on kind of a new database for our property management. We've grown out of the system that we were in that was a nice free platform for so long. We've used it for, 3 years or so.
Coming to an end, though.
Good problem to have.
But yeah, it is a good problem to have. Yeah, and I think ultimately it's going to grow our business, one, and two, with this type of a platform. We've done a very good job at leveraging multiple free platforms, but this platform is going to kind of bring everything all under one umbrella, which is going to make it a lot easier and a lot more organized for us. And then again, systematizing things and passing on to the next people that are going to be running more of the day-to-days. So.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
I think that's a perfect segue, too, because we talked about the money in the real estate and the system. Do you want to hit him with the listener question?
Yeah, so this week we have a listener question from Kim Gendrick. Her question is, or statement, I guess is in the form of a question as well. Taking the first step is the hardest, and I think...
Really,
well, it's
Jack?
more of a statement. There's no question mark here. Shut up.
Oh, my God.
All right, so she says,
We've
taking
gone
the
off the
first step
rails.
is the hardest, and I think the perception of real estate investing is that it requires deep pockets to enter. I would love to hear about how to build that foundation of savings or strategies to overcome not having a spare $100K in the bank, and how do you remove those barriers to entry, both financially and emotionally / mentally?
Who wants to go first? You want to take it down first, Matt?
Sure. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of how much you have to save and the barrier of entry with finances. So let's go back to my first property. I got an FHA loan on that property, so I only had to put 3.5% down. And then with a business partner that I had, again, both of us buying that property, we were $8,000 a piece. So
And you eliminated your your cost of living now, too.
correct.
Yep.
So I mean, in 8 months essentially, or 7.5 months, whatever it is, I mean that's about what I would have spent in rent anyways.
Well, even to that
living
point,
in that town, just for me personally.
Yep.
His $8,000 obviously would be more,
Yep.
but.
Yeah, but I think to that exact point, looking the way we did it, not to go again too deep into our story, but we kind of specialize in creative finance. And what we found is, as you grow in this business, it's kind of a running joke in real estate. You become equity rich and liquidity poor, but if you're always growing, because every dollar you get, you're basically reinvesting. And Kim, to answer your question about both the emotional and financial mentality, I stress this to people all the time. Find a mentor or find a partner or go to networking events. Take actionable steps to get in there and start asking questions and investing towards it. Because there are so many different ways to get into it. You can go the FHA route. You can partner. You can wholesale, meaning you find properties that you flip to other people and that you're actually making a spread without having to come out of pocket for anything. There's so many different things to start getting into this game once you start learning about it. But you got to show up and start basically taking actionable steps. And that emotional and mental piece comes by the people you surround yourself with. You know, I talked to Jack all week. I talked to Matt and Hannah and we talk. At this point, we're all basically in a marriage because you're running the business together, but you need to balance each other, and it really is a team sport. Go back to Jack's story at the beginning of the episode. One of the reasons that little thing happened, and he knows, and he admitted it, he's trying to do it all himself. So we like to rib him, but we got to sit down and get the systems there and get it even further along because this is really, truly a team sport. So what do you got to add on that?
So on that note, I mean, I think there's three things I want to touch on. I mean, I think the foundation that you build any business or investing career is being able to budget.
Yep.
Like if you can't budget with $1,000 a month, you're not going to be able to budget with $1 million a month.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get those basic foundations down and hammered out, and I mean, if you need to read a book, read a book. I mean, go online, go on YouTube, things of that nature. There's plenty of resources out there to help you, like mint.com or Personal Capital, something like that. Those are all great tools. But then, like, I feel like people overestimate the amount of money that they actually need. My first house was a single family, and I am local to Boston. I ended up investing in Tampa just because I thought there was a bunch of different reasons: good market, lower price point, higher cap rates. But like I think it was like $9,250 down on my first property.
Wow.
Like it wasn't. I mean, granted, it's a decent amount of money, but like it's not.
Sure.
It's not $150,000, $200,000, $500,000, or $1 million. Like, if you want to invest, there are ways to do it, and sometimes that is long distance real estate investing. And then another thing, the last thing I want to touch on is great deals find money. Like if you have a great deal and you ask somebody, they're probably going to be interested.
Would you clarify that a little bit more too?
I mean, one of the things that I've struggled with historically is basically when I first started, I didn't think anybody I knew had any money. Everybody was broke. Everybody was working 9 to 5 and living paycheck to paycheck. What I soon realized once I started having these conversations, I mean, real estate's kind of a sexy industry right now, or always has been. Start talking about it, people are interested, and then you start bringing it up, talking about your investments or your opportunities, and they're like, oh, maybe I'm interested. And like after my last deal, I've had 5 people reach out to me and say that they're interested in investing. So
you got to be excited about it. Tell everybody what you're doing. If you're not excited, how are they going to know?
Yeah, there was actually one thing on that note that I don't know who brought it up, but basically, if you're going to be doing like something like real estate investing, tell everyone within the first 10 minutes. Like every person you talk to, let them know. And if you do that, people are going to be interested, and they're going to basically potentially throw some cash your way.
Absolutely. And don't be like back to what we talked about before. When it comes to partnerships, especially, I feel like people lose sight of, what they're giving up, not what they're getting. And I've said this all along. As Jack just spilled his entire water all over him. The entire bottle. That's amazing.
Tune into YouTube. You can see it.
First guest, first spill. Let's go.
That's amazing.
Microphone got in the way.
Yeah.
Jack, look what I can do. Look what I can do.
Oh, wow.
You got a straw. That doesn't count.
We have gone off the rails.
Technical difficulties.
Okay. So to wrap that up with a nice, neat little bow, get in the game. The example I give, like last week was, okay, if there's a deal that you need $500,000 to close, and I'm willing to give you the $500,000, and I'm going to make $900,000 profit, and you're going to make $100,000. There are people who will be more worried about me making the $900,000 and not looking at the $100,000 they make.
Yeah.
Avoid those people like the plague, because there are plenty of other people that when they see an opportunity through the lens, because that's what this is. These are opportunities you're approaching these people with. They will partner with you. And okay, you can always renegotiate the terms of the next one. You can always grow as you put more skin in the game. But just get in the game. Just start doing something. The biggest thing is get in the damn game. And you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. Literally, I was talking to my attorney today. I was talking to my attorney today. We just bought a building in Keene. I should have took out a rehab budget on. Turns out appliances are expensive. I don't know why I forgot that all of a sudden, but now I got to find $30,000 to buy appliances. So you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. So going on to the next one, because I think you're going to have a very interesting answer for this. And this is a question we ask ourselves. You're going to be the first guest to answer it. And there is no right or wrong answer.
Sure.
But in your opinion, and make sure you tell the story about your dad, because he got a very unique circumstance. Is college worth it?
I would say college, I guess at the end of the day, it depends on the individual. Luckily for me, when I had the opportunity to go to college, my parents did not go to college. So I was not brought up in the family that said, you have to go like as soon as you get out of high school. So they allowed me to make my own decisions, which was great. I started teaching martial arts, and I was doing that for about 10 years or so. Within that 10-year span, I said, you know what? I'll try college out, I guess. To Mike's point, what he was alluding to, my dad worked actually for a community college, so I could go to any state college essentially for free, except I had to pay for books. So I had the opportunity to go to a state school for free, and I just kind of abandoned it for a little bit. Thought making $40,000 a year being a karate instructor would pave the way and pay the bills, and you get a dose of perspective the older you get. So I would say it was worth it, but I think that you want to do it on your own terms. If you're someone that's graduating high school now and you're like, I have to go to school just because I have to go to school, I don't think that that's the case. If you're someone that's wants to be a doctor, well, obviously, if that's your passion, you want to be a doctor, then you're going to have to go to school.
Might have to for that. I'm not sure.
The funny part is the first class that I ever took at the community college was Entrepreneurship 101.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, that was my first class. And I mean, it was pretty basic stuff for the most part. But the other part that I found very fascinating when I went to college is you go to these classes and you ask them, so entrepreneurship, oh, well, how many businesses did you start?
Oh, zero.
Yeah,
Zero?
Yeah.
I mean, they're reading, they're studying a textbook and they're regurgitating that stuff, which is great. I mean, I'm still learning, but it would be nice to have perspective from someone. Like if Mike came in and taught the class, okay, cool, I get it. But yeah, so I mean,
actionable steps.
Yeah.
So college is definitely one of those ones that, again, I think that if you want to do it on your own terms and you think it's a good route for you, sure. Personally, for me, I think it was good. I mean, it gave me a better understanding. I got to network a lot. The one thing that I tell, again, when I was teaching karate, I had a lot of kids that are older now and they're starting to go to school. I tell them just focus on networking as much as possible. Don't worry
really
too
good-
much
that's really good
about
advice.
sitting in the classroom, listening to the instructor, because, again, like Mike was talking about last week, I was not a school person. I had work ethic, so I was not the smartest, but I knew when to get my homework done. I knew when to show up to class, those types of things. But yeah, school was not my forte. But I made it through, and here we are.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
All right, so moving on, segment we like to call the beginning and the end.
Yeah. Someone else is on the hot seat. I like it.
Yeah, that's great. What piece of actionable advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
I would say patience is probably the biggest one. Again, like I mentioned, I was very fortunate to be patient and not worry about what other people were doing in their lives and hurrying up and moving out and getting their own apartments and starting to try and find families and all that type of stuff. Again, I think being patient, staying the course is probably what I would give my previous self advice.
You mentioned that earlier, and that is something that now that you bring it up, I significantly regret. Like, I moved out right after college.
Yeah.
I moved to Southie and paid more money than I could afford. Like,
Good old Southie.
Oh, man. Like, if I just saved that money, I could have turned that
Invested
into,
Well,
turned it into so much more at this point.
Especially you see the way it goes. That's a great answer. That's an unbelievable answer. So that's the front half of it. The second half of that. What's one thing you want your 90-year-old self to say to you? What do you want to hear? You won, you lost, etc.
My 90-year-old self, I would say stay the course. It'll all work out in the end. I think that a lot of times when you're younger, you stress about things that are very inconsequential, like they're not really that important. So if I had any advice for myself from 90 to 18, I would say just stay the course and you'll be fine.
That's awesome. This reminds me of that little gift your mother got you. I saw it. We're coming out of I think it was a closing or something stressful in the business.
Oh, the pillow.
And he's got this little pillow in his back seat. And what's it say on the pillow?
It says no worries on the front, and then on the back side it says 100% of the things you worry about are not even something you should worry about, or something.
And I was like, that is Matt Hitchcock, in a nutshell. That is
just let it slide.
We say all the time, he's the honey, I'm the vinegar. It complements each other well. So where can more people get more information about you, get in touch with you?
So Instagram, it's MJ_Hitch. Facebook is Matthew Hitchcock. And yeah.
I like it.
Both in the description for today, if anyone wants to follow that up.
Oh, that'll be in the show notes?
Yep,
I like
in.
it.
Boom.
All right.
I'm good at what I do.
And before you guys wrap up, I want to say I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you.
Love what you guys are doing, and I look forward to seeing more and more episodes.
We appreciate it.
Thanks
Guest number one, we
Guest number
survived.
one, yeah.
All right. If you don't already follow us on social media, you can literally find us anywhere. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm running out of oxygen because we are everywhere for social media. All the links will be in the description below by our great producer behind the scenes, Chrissy. If you're new and just listening, make sure you head on over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's very important.
Better yet, come out and check out the live show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Here at Studio One Podcast Cafe above the Two Guys Smoke Shop in Salem, New Hampshire.
Studio 21.
I was going to
I
let
got
it
your
slide,
back.
but
What
she's
did I
got
say?
it.
Studio 1. I know
I?
I'm number 1 in your book.
That's what it is. It had to be.
Let me take this one for you. The Studio 21 Podcast Cafe above Two Guys
Perfect.
Smoke Shop in
Perfect.
Salem, New Hampshire.
All right.
All right.
Also, what about the swag?
Yeah, if you want to get your hands on some of the Tell Us Why
Look at the swag.
swag. I mean, look how good I look right now on YouTube, obviously. There's a link in the swag, link in the description below to the swag shop.
I better have that in my green room when I get back.
I like it. That's it for the show today. Make sure to tune in next week's episode when we are joined by another great guest, Zach Camacho of Camacho Knives and Leather. And until then, don't forget, bet on yourself.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.